Okay, so to start this one out, you're going to have your title block and border join open. We're going to start by, it's going to be kind of graphic here, but we're going to start with deleting out the horizontal one. So we're going to select it and erase it out. So we're left just with this horizontal title block and border. The drawing we're going to do today is this drawing. And this drawing will fit better horizontally than what it will vertically on a piece of paper. So we're going to do it that way. Now, you might think, oh no, I just deleted that out. But what we're going to do here, I want you to get in the habit of doing this, going to your A, save as, and save this drawing as Chapter 5 Bolt in your activity folder. So, go to your activity folder, say this is Chapter 5 Bolt in your activity folder, and this one's saved. Since we went save as, your original drawing, which was the title block and border, it still looks like that with both your title block and borders on there. Okay, so now, when you do a drawing, I mentioned this earlier, I know. When you do a drawing, if it's a drawing that has circular parts, a good place to start is always starting with the center lines of the circle. So for example, on this drawing, we have this circular part over here on the right side. We're going to start by drawing a couple center lines for that drawing to start. So the way that looks here is like this. I'm going to draw a line about through the middle of our paper, something like that. Horizontally, making sure polar is on so that's straight, or ortho. And then over here on the right side, I'm going to draw another center line that goes up and down. So we have those two center lines drawn in there, and that's where we're going to start our drawing at. All right, so now one good point here to make is, when I'm doing a drawing, I typically do all my drawing either on the layer 0 or on the layout layer. And then just as needed, I switch things to their correct layers. I don't typically change back and forth between layers, in the middle of a drawing. Just as I need to, I put things on their correct layer. So I usually do everything here on the 0 layer, and then move them to the other layers as needed. So for this first drawing, or for the first part of this drawing, we're going to start by drawing this circle. We're going to draw that circle right here on the intersection of these two lines. Hit the wrong key. Draw it right there on that intersection. And I'm going to draw it a diameter, so I have to hit D, enter, once I pick my center point. Diameter of 1.25. And put that circle there. Next, we're going to add a polygon to that. So we're going to go POL for polygon. How many sides does a bolt head of a bolt have? It has 6 sides, yes. And the center point of it is going to be right up there in the center of that circle. Is it going to be inscribed or circumscribed for a bolt? Circumscribed. And I wish it had this option, but it's not. It just asks for the radius of the circle down here. And I did this on purpose, made it a little bit harder of a radius. What is the radius of a 1 1/4 inch circle? .625, correct. Or, I kind of gave it away there for a second, it's 5/8 of an inch. So, you can either type it as a fraction, 5/8, or you can type it as .625. And put that circle, or that polygon in there. All right, so we have this here and you have it looking good. However, if you notice on our drawing, the point of the polygon goes straight up. We want the point of our polygon to go straight up, so we're going to learn a new command here that we haven't used much, which is rotate. So we're going to go RO for rotate. Oops, I got to be on the right screen again. RO for rotate. We're going to pick our polygon. For the base point, we're going to pick the center of the circle again. And if your polar is on, you can just rotate it up there using polar, or just type in 90. Either way. So type 90, or if you're using polar, rotate it there and click, and you're perfect. Okay, so next, what we're going to do, let me get this to the right position on this drawing. Next, we're going to start drawing our actual side view of the bolt. To start our side view of the bolt, we're just going to come over here a random amount, doesn't matter our distance in between, and then we're going to offset for the thickness of our head of our bolt. So the way that's going to look is like this. I'm going to zoom out here a little bit, going to draw a line about here. Doesn't matter how far away that is, there-ish. We're going to offset 5/8 of an inch again, or that .625. And we're going to offset from that line to there. And that's going to give us the representation for the side of our bolt. All right. So now that we have our lines offset there, now we need to draw lines that represent the top and the bottom of our bolt in this side view. You can't just go through here and go line and draw a line across here and a line across here, trim it up and say, hey, there I got this. It's done. That is good. You can't do that. What you have to do is this. You have to pick a point where it lays out against this other drawing. So for example, where would the points for this, where would the points for the top and the bottom of a bolt go? Parallel to the top and bottom of the bolt, not the circle, of the polygon. So you're going to go a line, again, from that top corner of the bolt, straight across to there. Now there's a couple ways of doing this, and I'll show you both. So there's one way of doing it, and then I go trim, and trim that off. So I drew a line from that intersection, straight across, perpendicular over to there. Now another way of doing this, and I don't do it this way very often because I think it's slower. One way of doing it, another way, is if you have tracking and O-snap both on, you can track from here, track across with that green dotted line, click there, and then trim it off. My thing with this is it takes me longer to carefully track across to draw from here to here than what it does just for me to click on the intersection, draw to there, and then I still have to trim anyway. It's just faster for me to do it from that and trim it. It's kind of up to you, whatever way you decide to do that, and what's the most efficient for you. Okay, so now next, let's look at our drawing here again. Next, I need to get this line here and this line here put in. Where do those two lines come from? Now, you can't just guess where they go. Where do those come from? Yes, what do you got, Alico? Yeah, they come from these 2 points on the polygon. So again, you can do your tracking, and you can go from here and track across, or just click and click, click and click, and trim them off. I, again, like doing the point-to-point and trimming, but that's totally up to you. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and do the rest of this, or the next part of this. So first off, what we're going to do is we're going to come to here, and we're going to draw the top portion of this bolt. What the top portion of this is showing is this piece that's over here. What's actually showing you is the top of a bolt isn't perfectly flat. It's rounded over a little bit on the corners. It's rounded over so there aren't sharp edges there. So this is just a little bit of a rounded corner. And that's shown here by this little round, this little fillet that they do on that top corner. To do it over here, we have to know how far down it goes. We're going to keep with pretty standard measurements on this, pretty easy numbers. We're just going to offset 0.1 inch. So we're going to go O for offset, 0.1. We're going to offset this top line of the head of the bolt down 0.1 inches to there. Once that's offset, we're going to draw an arc. And typically I draw circles a lot and trim them out, as you know. But this is an instance where the arc really just works better. So we're going to start the arc right here on this intersection to that midpoint to that intersection. And that's good. All right, so next, we need to do the same thing right here in this section. All right, so same thing right there. So the way that's going to look here is I need to draw an arc from this corner, and you can just watch this first time. From there, I need to go to the midpoint of this section. But notice if I try to click here, midpoint, it goes back to there. It doesn't get the midpoint of that. The easiest way for me to show you to do this right now is going to be like this. If we trim off that line, it divides that line into an individual line nicely. If we trim here, then I can very easily draw an arc from that point to the middle of that short piece of line to there. And then the same thing down here on the bottom, from that end point to the midpoint to there. And that's got those two looking great. Okay, so now to finish this up, we need this line to go ahead and go back all the way across. I'm going to show you 3 different ways of doing that. 2 of these ways are not acceptable, so don't do it these first 2 ways. So first, if you need a line across here, you might think you'd go in here and draw a line from there to there. And there we go, we got that line all the way across. But the bad thing here is, this line is made up of 1, 2, 3 different line segments, and that's not good. Once you start doing things in 3D in CAD, that's going to wreak havoc with you, having those 3 multiple lines there. Another way you might think about doing it is, well, let's draw a line from here to here, and that's good. Well, but it's not, because up here at the top you have a single individual line there, you have an individual line there, and then you have this line that goes all the way across the whole thing. So you have double lines there, and again, that's bad. I think the easiest way to do this is the way I do it all the time, is I'm going to get rid of one of those lines. I'm just going to erase it. And now I'm going to highlight this other line with grips, grab that grip, drag it up to that end point, bam, I'm done. And that is one individual line that goes all the way across. Later, once you start doing 3D stuff, this will make your lives a lot easier. If you get in the habit of doing it the other way, you're going to be miserable. All right, the next part is we just have to trim this up and getting rid of all of our layout. So first off, I'm going to erase out that layout line. And then I'm just going to use trim. I'm going to trim off that corner, trim off that corner, and then trim off these two little pieces of line. And right there, that's got us a really nice representation. Looks very similar to the top of this bolt. All right, next what we're going to do is we're going to draw the thickness, the diameter of our bolt. So what we're going to do, how we're going to do that is we're going to come over here a little bit further. I'm just going to use offset. I'm going to offset 0.4 above and 0.4 below the center line. And then I'm going to trim those two off and erase out my extra little chunks. And there we've got a nice looking bolt. All right, next what we're going to do is right here, you notice it looks kind of like a washer. It's really not. Some bolts have this extra little additional part below them, so it doesn't sit on the bottom of the bolt head. It sits on this little ring instead. So we're going to add this little ring in there. To do that, again, I'm going to stay with our standard offset we've been using of 0.1. So I'm going to go over offset. I'm going to set it to 0.1. I'm going to offset 0.1 to the right of the bottom of the bolt. And then for how far it sticks out, I'm just going to use 0.1 also. I'm going to offset above and below 0.1. Now I'm just going to trim out that washer. So the trimming here is relatively easy. I'm going to trim out those two and those two and trim here and there. And that looks like a nice little washer that looks very similar to this one. And I can pan over here a little bit. There we go. All right, next, we're going to do the length of the bolt. Typically for the length of the bolt, it's measured for wherever the bolt's going to set to the end of the bolt. So this bolt we're going to make is 3 inches long. Then I come over here, we're going to offset 3 from that end of the bolt right there to the right to there. And then just trim up that end. So offset 3 inches and trim the end of it off. All right, the next part of this is, on the end of this, very similar to the top where it's rounded off, the bottom of this is cut off at an angle. It's called a chamfer. We're going to put that little chamfer here on the end of it. Again, we're just going to use our nice little standard measurement we've been doing, which is offset and 0.1. I'm going to offset this line 0.1 to the left. And now I'm going to put a little 45-degree angle across here. To do your 45-degree angle, you're going to use your polar. So if I go down here to my polar, which is here, I'm going to check my setting on my polar. Right now I'm set to a 45-90, so it's going to draw a line every 45 degrees. If I have it set here, it's going to draw every 90 degrees or every 30 or every 22.5, 18, etc. I'm at a 45-degree angle, so I'm going to come here. I'm going to click on that corner. And notice there it has that dotted line that locks in. I'm just going to draw it to there and click. Draw it to there and click. And then trim up the end of this. And that is beautiful. Okay, so now what we're going to do on this is we're going to go ahead and put in the threads of this bolt. This is just a representation, a simplified representation of the threads. You're not going to draw in the angular threads and all that good stuff, the spiral that goes around there. This is the way it's shown on a simplified drawing. So to do that, we're going to make these a pretty common little setting. We're going to offset those at 0.1. So we're going to go over offset 0.1. And then offset this line 0.1 to the right. Now, if you remember, there's that multiple option of offset. So I hit M for multiple. Every time I click over here, it's going to offset a line. I just offset that out there ways. I don't care exactly where you go to, about in that area, and hit enter. And that looks great. Now, I'm also going to offset, if you noticed on the drawing, every other one is a little bit shorter. I'm going to offset down 0.1 inches to there. And I'm going to offset up 0.1 inches to there. And now I'm just going to go through here and start trimming. I'm going to trim off every other line, starting here, trim off every other line as I go down, and over here, every other line as it goes down. I'm going to stop the video and let you trim. All right, so now, you've trimmed off those lines, every other one. Now we're going to go ahead and come in here, and we're going to erase these two lines, and we're going to be left with that, and that's looking really good, like our example bolt. All right, next thing we're going to do is we need to draw the head of the bolt, or sorry, the nut. We need to draw the nut. If you notice, this end of the nut is exactly the same as this end of the bolt. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to use the copy command. We're going to copy just that portion of it. We're going to copy that down to here, just like so. Make sure you're following there with tracking to there. And then we're going to mirror this to the other side. My video is about done. We're going to mirror it to the other side 5/8 of an inch away from here. So there, 5/8. and then mirror this to the other side.